Hello, Global Theater. My name is Jerry Fielka. Today is September 24, 2024. Want to thank Rob Grant and his amazing podcast. I'm probably wrong about everything. Also want to thank the Ann Arbor Film Festival for showing today's guest film, and that's where we met in Ann Arbor, Michigan. Jeffrey Stephen Moser. Where in the heck you calling in from?
I'm in Morgantown, West Virginia.
How cool is that? First question is, what is the best thing for a human being?
Patience.
Whoa, I never get that. You know, my mom has a great line. God, give me patience and give it to me now.
Excellent.
That is a great answer. Okay, what's your favorite form of information? How it comes into you?
Oh, probably movies.
Yeah. Why do you think humans collect or gather information?
Because we can't help but to do it. I think that's probably like part of our innateness, right? Something in.
Well, you answered the next question. Is it more innate or more invented that we need or want to collect information?
I think it's more innate. I mean, there's certainly we've invented certain ways of going about that, but I mean, it's clearly something that's there from the beginning.
Yeah. Do thoughts create emotions?
Yes. Yes.
Fill in the blank. I don't know what I think until I.
Think about it.
All right, I get that answer often. McLuhan says, I don't know what I think until I say it. Joan Didion says, I don't know what I think until I write it. What I've found is most people say, I don't know what I think until I do it or experience it.
Right.
But as you said, is thinking more innate or more invented?
I would say you'd have to ask person to person. I'm a thinker, so I think it's innate, but that's just because I can't stop it from happening. So
yeah, and that's it. When I say you put the questions in the context you want, you can answer them like, well, this is how I feel, or you can say, as an observer of humans, you can do it however you want.
excellent. All right.
Can humans think without language?
This is really a good question. I love it. Yes. I think that there's music.
Go ahead.
There's musical understanding. Like I can think in music. I guess that is a language of sorts. But right, it doesn't have to be language. It can be other types of language, visual languages. Yeah. I often think in pictures.
Yeah, that's really good. Chomsky says a language is not just words. It's a culture, a tradition, a unification of community, a whole history that creates what a community is. Jeffrey, what do you do when language doesn't work? When language breaks down, what do you do?
I stew.
Good word. What does stew mean? What does it entail?
I mean, it entails me thinking, ruminating on thoughts, trying to understand what went wrong, how to fix it. I mean, it's not something I want to do, but it will just start happening.
Your observations of humans in general, are we more feeling beings or more thinking beings?
I think we're more feeling beings.
Yeah.
Although I wish people were more thinking beings.
Yeah. But do you notice that you answer how most people do it? I think we're more feeling.
Yes, exactly.
Bridget Bardot says, when I make love, I don't think. I'm like, good luck. How do you turn your brain off? But it's like people who meditate, they go, okay, now think about not thinking.
Yeah.
So then there's a bumper sticker on my car in my street and it says, don't believe everything you think. And I'm like, well, you could say, don't believe everything you feel.
Exactly.
Two questions from Alan Turing in the 50s. One, is thinking a function of the soul?
Sorry, was that a question?
Yeah. Is thinking a function of the soul?
I would say no.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The second Turing question is, can machines think?
Yes. And I think that I'm coming around to this idea more recently, right? As we see AI and stuff starting to do things that look remarkably similar to thought, right?
Yeah. Do you more pursue happiness or more pursue meaning?
I would like to say that I pursue happiness, but I'm constantly struggling. So I guess I'm looking more for meaning, or I guess that's what I'm finding. I'm finding more meaning than happiness.
Interesting, because Viktor Frankl's book, Man's Search for Meaning, is where I got the question. He says, meaning tends to last and happiness doesn't necessarily last.
Yeah, I could agree with that.
Yeah. Does the brain more detect consciousness or create it? Like, is consciousness there bubbling away and we're more so detecting it or more so creating it?
I believe that we're creating it through
Yeah.
interactions. Yeah.
Yeah. What's faster, speed of light or speed of thought?
Speed of light. Nothing's faster than it.
Audre Lorde, the poet, said, you can't dismantle the master's house using the master's tools. Yvonne Rainer responded and said, you can if you expose the tools. What new tool do you suggest?
Mm. Can I pass on that one or come back to it a little bit later?
You can pass. You can say, I don't know. I don't want you to pass. I want you to go your hunch or your guess, but you can pass. Basically, the question is, I open these questions sometimes with cute quotes. It doesn't mean you have to apply it, because people want to go into, well, what's the master's house? Like Frank Zappa said, who are the brain police? He didn't say the brain police are the evil capitalist corporate or the brain police are the voice inside your head. He just asked the question.
Right.
So
Yeah.
we're just here to kind of invent new questions and new metaphors. You don't have to answer the question. That's the one thing. And I'm for stories, anecdotes, and tangents. You can go off and, well, let me tell you a story about making this film that could touch on that subject. But the basic question, Jeffrey, is what tool do you most gravitate towards? That's what it is. You can add the word new if you want, or
Gotcha.
add dismantling master's house.
The tool that I go to most frequently is mathematics.
Wow, that's heavy. I didn't think of that for you. Good. What new toy do you suggest?
What new toy? A
Yeah.
Vespa motor scooter.
A what?
A Vespa motor scooter.
Oh, motor scooter. How cool is that? Yeah.
Always a good new toy.
What do you worry about when you go to bed at night?
What I'm going to do in the morning because teach or whatever I need to do that day.
Yeah. McLuhan learned from Ezra Pound, the poet, that artists are the antenna of the race. So you remember the word artist can mean mathematicians, video artist,
Mm-hmm.
sculptors, poets, it's a general term, painters, politicians, poets. Okay. Artists are the antenna of the race. They're broadcasting and detecting the hidden psychic effects of our inventions, so we might learn how to cope with what we don't like about our inventions.
Right.
So, Jeffrey, I asked you the question Marshall probed his whole career. Why do we ignore the hidden psychic effects of our inventions, even though the artists are broadcasting them to us?
Why do other people ignore it? I don't know. Why do I ignore it? I don't know.
Yeah. No hunch or guess. Why do you think? I mean, you're telling something to people with your art, right?
Right.
Not your teaching. Then
Right.
how often do the people get what you're telling them? And once the artist makes their art, it's no longer theirs. Do people come up and say, dude, I loved your art. I thought it did this to me. And you go, well,
Mhm.
that's not what I intended. Or you're just welcoming to hear what it did to them. that
I
it did something.
I welcome any sort of response to my work. I mean, it's not the response to my work isn't what drives me as an artist, but
Yeah.
it's certainly an excellent byproduct of what I do.
Yeah. Do artists have moral obligation?
No, for even a second.
Dude, there's no right or wrong answers, but that one you got right.
Well,
Everybody says, well, we have obligate as a human, we have obligations. Well, that's not, I'm saying to artists, because that's what art's supposed to fuck your shit up,
right.
and then
Yeah.
what, you're supposed to, like, anyways, that was good. Because I imagine you're a moral person and you're not saying, you're out to fuck, people up. You're out
Right.
to stimulate their thinking or whatever. So are you more afraid of new ideas or more afraid of old ideas?
I guess I'd be more afraid of old ideas if we could talk about ideas being something that's scary, which I don't feel that they are. Right? There's no thoughts that scare me at all. There's nothing that I like stop myself from thinking. If it's coming to my head, I'm going to embrace it, like no matter how strange or immoral it may be. Right? There's no reason that we should prejudge what we do as it's coming through us. Right? There's plenty of people to prejudge it after it comes out of us. So
that's amazing, because that again goes to the Zappa line. He says, you don't want to see what's behind my eyes. And it's like, oh, there's something evil. It's like, no, we all have these thoughts, but we don't necessarily act on them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that's sort of like violent films, which I hate. I've showed them in the 70s in Ann Arbor, Taxi Driver and everything, but I don't like, and I hate, a gun on every billboard for films with Clint Eastwood going, make my day. I say, but we don't know if that activates people to be violent or it alleviates them of being violent.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah.
So
I think,
yeah, go ahead.
I think it alleviates people. I think that, right, we're not driven to do things because of a video game or a movie. I don't think that that's something that is,
yeah.
I mean, I guess there's people out there for sure, but I don't think that that's like the major cause of, right, the things that go wrong in us. It's not because of external stuff. It's because of what's happening inside of our heads.
Yeah.
You know?
Can you conjure up your earliest memory ever or one of them?
Yes, I can. So probably when I was 4, maybe, we had a 1970, it was in the 70s, so we had this really awesome 1970s black velvet chair on a pedestal with 5 sort of prongs coming out of it. And there was a plastic cup that like went around those prongs and then went around the big piece. And I just remember lifting that up and letting it drop and lifting it up and letting it drop and just for hours, it seemed, of course, right, you're 4, so anything would seem like hours. That and another early memory that I have is playing around with a Fisher-Price movie viewer. It's like the little hand cranked, you put a cartridge in, you crank it, it's got a little loop of 8mm film in there. That's experience with that toy pretty much made me the artist that I am.
Amazing. So that was not the Pixel Vision Fisher-Price camera.
No. This is it was a little loop of 8mm film inside of a plastic.
Is it Super 8 or 8mm?
I would assume that it's Super 8. It's hard to know because it was inside the case. There's no sound, so it could have been either. I don't know.
It was a loop of how many seconds?
So they were like Walt Disney shorts. So it was like The Sorcerer's Apprentice compacted into maybe 2 or 3 minutes. It all depended on how fast you cranked the crank, right? How long it was.
Right. But you actually looked at it and it was no electricity involved, but exactly. There was a light source that you had.
So it had a little prism, so you had to like turn it towards the light outside.
Or towards the light. Battery, in other words, no battery.
Exactly.
Amazing.
It allowed me to go forward and backwards or like just be on 2 frames. I mean, just that whole experience of seeing film as individual frames that are stuck in time, then, being flicked in front of us to give us the effect.
Yeah, pretty cool. Because I've had my Fisher-Price Pixel Vision Video Festival for 34 years.
Oh, wow,
So
that's awesome.
I'm close to the Fisher Price sort of brand name, and
Yes.
and the other thing was we had Super 8 films and regular 8 films growing up,
Hmm.
and we would check out George Méliès's films from the
Yeah.
Flint Public Library in Michigan,
Yeah.
and we would actually play them on a Super 8 projector, meaning we would go forward at a normal speed, then we'd speed it up, then we'd crank it back and see it go backwards, and
Yeah.
find exactly where he flipped in a special effect, like something pops in. And that's, again, I think what you said, it did it to me, is that taught me what the live experience, live video, a live film experience is, which we call live cinema.
Hmm.
Like it's the act of projecting, isn't like off in the room and it's some magical thing. It's like you're involved with
Right.
how the film is actually going. I mean, you do it with your Wizard of Oz piece is amazing. And by the way, I had to ask you, have you ever seen that Wizard of Oz re-edit where he puts every line in the Wizard of Oz in alphabetical order?
I have seen that. Yeah. Yeah.
That that to me is, I tried to show that. I've shown it to an audience. It drives them nuts.
I'm sure.
They can't take it. And when I saw it and heard it, I thought this is amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Are things that are weird like that amazing even if people don't get them? I mean, what's your
Well,
experience?
you're asking a question, are they amazing? Well, in me and yours terms, we take that word amazing and we use it as an adjective. That's amazing. So
Right.
to the normal viewer, they go, no, I want to watch Wizard of Oz straight through normally. So
Right.
any variation on, subvert, to subvert is what the artist should be doing, but that doesn't mean you have to subvert. I mean,
Right.
you can make normal films and get away with it and be effective, and they've probably affected me and you.
Right.
I mean, did Tron, I mean, we can go into Tron now. I mean, did Tron really do anything different in storytelling realm? Like,
Mm.
I tried to read up on it today in Wikipedia, like how it's, well, was it a good film? And when who's saying it, like, well, how many points does it get on Rotten Tomatoes?
Right.
But what did it try to do is different in a tech term. The form was they were trying to do something different, but
Yes.
the content was, oh no, we're going to tell a story of Jeff Bridges doing something.
We're gonna
You
tell the
know,
Wizard of Oz again. Yeah.
is that what it is, really?
I mean, that whole film is the Wizard of Oz. Someone gets pulled out of their ordinary world and placed into a fantastic world. Um, they're like the only one that can fix it, and they have the innate power the entire time. I mean, it's the same story being told over and over again. As
Right,
they do, as Marshall McLuhan said.
right. But it's funny because did it affect you both ways? You got swooped into the story, whether there were special effects. I mean, did they literally go, you can't have this qualified for special effects? It's like, give me a break. That's like Ann Arbor. Check this out. Ann Arbor wouldn't take video for 40 years.
Is that right?
That's like, what the fuck? Yeah, video is the new film. It's like, come on.
Yeah.
But they wanted to be pure to the 16 millimeter, although they did show 35 millimeter. They showed a Claude Lelouch film in 35 millimeter. But guess what? It was bullshit because Bruce Banner shot 16 millimeter footage off his TV set. So what's the difference?
Right.
You
Yeah.
showed video. You've
Yeah.
shown it. Well, if it's one step removed, so you showed it. So they finally got, and now, they take pride. Oh, these 3 films are 16 millimeter. The rest of the films are video.
Right. Yeah.
So it is interesting, that whole thing you taught me about Tron. That was important, and we can get into it more. So back to memory. Is
Yeah.
memory more a curse or more a blessing?
It's a curse.
Wow. Heavy duty. You know, everybody says blessing, so I appreciate it. Tell me, Jeffrey, this is really fun. I'm glad you get okay. Tell me someone within your immediate family who had an impact on you, kind of like a role model, just briefly, and then outside your immediate family.
Wow. My older brother, when I was younger, he's about 4 years older than me. He was everything because he was older, and he would tell me what he was learning all the
Yeah,
time. So I was 4 years ahead from an early age because he would just tell me everything that he knew. So I was like, okay, school became very easy at that point because I had already learned all about it.
wow.
So,
What's his what was his career, or what is his career?
so he does not have. I mean, he has a career. It's like resetting shelves at a CVS. It's nothing amazing, right? He focused on family. He's got a fantastic family. I've got a great niece and nephew.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's great. He taught you the art of learning, man. That's great. So now outside your immediate family, same question.
Um, Somebody that made a big impact. That's a little harder, just because I'm not. I have a hard time with like thinking of anybody being elevated. Like I'm not a fanboy of anyone. Like there's nothing. There's no one that's famous that I'm like, oh, I just wish I could meet that person.
Yeah.
So it's really hard. It's a little harder for me to think about like the people that influenced me. I guess, I mean, one person that influenced me. Oh, outside my family. Okay, that's not. Uh, Shoot. I had a teacher in fourth grade, a reading teacher, and I think that's in he. And it's so hard to like identify how he mentored me, but I came out of there, knowing more and being more confident,
Yeah.
as a kid. To have a teacher invest in me, I guess, would be the way to do it. Like,
Yeah.
Notice things in me that I didn't notice in myself and bring that forward.
It's a big trait. Okay,
Yeah.
that's beautiful. Did your parents raise you a particular religion?
We were Methodist and then Baptist growing up, but it wasn't overly preached, right? It wasn't like we went to school, we went on Sundays, and then that was all that was ever talked about.
Do you pray?
I do not.
If God exists, what would you like God to say to you after you die?
Oh, you were right the whole time?
Very good. Do evil people exist, or does evil use people as a vehicle?
Um, I would say evil people exist.
Yeah.
I don't think about things as outside forces. Like, I don't have any conception of broad forces affecting people.
Yeah.
I see it as people making decisions. People make choices.
Yeah.
And we see those choices as evil because they do bad things to other people. So,
Yeah. The hidden question really is, Jeffrey, how do you advise someone to deal with an enemy? And I'll set it up again with a few thoughts. Alan Watts says, if you acknowledge your enemy, you empower them. Coppola stole from the mob and the samurai. Keep your friends close and your enemies closer.
mm-hmm.
JFK said, forgive your enemy, but don't forget their name. And Fellini says, I need an enemy. So it's a lot of thoughts. Based question is, how do you advise someone to deal with an enemy? But first, how would you respond to Alan Watts? If you acknowledge your enemy, you empower them.
I don't. Honestly, I don't believe in enemies. I don't think that there's such a thing as an enemy. But if I did, I would say that you have to acknowledge them. And I mean, you can't take away their power by ignoring them.
Yeah.
You have to acknowledge them to take away any power that they have.
Yeah. Nassim Taleb said games were created to give non-heroes the illusion of winning. In real life, we don't know who wins or loses, but we can tell who a hero is. My friend said villains don't think they're bad. They want control. Heroes want freedom. Gregory Bateson, the anthropologist, says if the criminal gets caught, does he go, whoa, my criminal skills weren't up to snuff that day? Or does he go, I did something morally and socially wrong? So again, it's a lot of prompts. Basic question is, does punishment work?
Ooh, man, these are big questions. Um, I think punishment does work. I think for some people it works.
Yeah.
I don't think that it's a general. I don't think that everyone can get punished and learn from it. I mean, clearly there's tons of people that don't. But I guess punishment works if you have self-reflection, and that's a big if.
Yeah. Self-reflection is heavy because that's what I mean. Is that what rehabilitation is wanting?
I mean, absolutely. There's no evil a concept of I am evil unless there's self-reflection, right? People that are evil, they don't know. They don't have any conception of those things, so they just do what they do. I mean, if they did, they wouldn't be able to do it, in my mind.
But Jeffrey, you come off, you're saying, math is important. You're a linear kind of logical dude, you thinking guy.
Mm-hmm.
But where did you get this idea of self-reflection as being important? The way your parents raised you or on your own?
So I was a philosophy undergrad.
Oh, I see.
Before I went to graduate school for digital design. Yeah, I did a lot of reading in my 20s. I went to undergrad when I was 27, so I had already had about 8 or 9 years of reading and being in the world. It was the 90s; you could get away without working very much. So I spent that time, improving myself, trying to understand my own spirituality, investigating that and investigating knowledge. For being sort of a linear guy, I have a lot of belief in the unbelievable or the unknowable.
Yeah.
Those things, I don't see those things as being against each other.
Right.
Understanding that the world is a logical place, but it's also completely illogical. We can never understand it at the same time.
Yeah. It's really good. Are we watching it happen or are we making it happen?
We are making it happen.
Yeah. What were the top philosopher guys that most had an impact on you, just off the top of your head? Book titles or particular philosophers? Anybody?
It's funny just because I met with a grad student this morning and we were talking about his sort of spirituality, but I mentioned Schopenhauer and it really brought back a lot of memories from the undergrad. So Schopenhauer's The World as Will The World as Will and Representation.
Yeah.
His masterwork. I mean, he's a pessimist philosopher, so he doesn't believe that there's anything good about the world.
Yeah.
His idea of the will is that it's something that is driving us all to continue to live, and that there's nothing we can do about it, and that the only escape is art. Is his the way that he ends up talking about it. So yeah, Schopenhauer and then Nietzsche, as his sort of protege, as such. Yeah.
Very good. James Joyce was the first projectionist in Dublin about 100 years ago. He basically checked out. He said, "This is stupid. Why should I go inside a building and see a movie of a tree when I can go outside and see a real tree?" Mm-hmm. Years later, Faulkner said, "Sometimes the best fiction is more true than journalism. Why do we have to recreate things in order to get them? Why do we have to go to a theatrical play of people acting out life? Why don't we just live life?"
Because the theater is not life. I don't think it's not, it could be a reflection of life. It can be trying to tell a story about our lives, but it's not real. It's all fabricated.
Yeah.
It's an edifice.
So walk us through, Jeffrey, your sort of tipping points. So where you're seeing this film phenomenon in your life affect you, but then you go into high school and you go, what am I going to study in college? Then you go, what do you study in college? And then goes to philosophy and then leads you to your career now. Where's those tipping points? Because I know you also taught photography. So sort of like a couple tipping points. What attracted you to, seeing films with your little Fisher Price device and then going, hey, I want to make these. So, can I do this? So couple tipping points in your career callings.
Yeah. So when I was in high school, I shifted away from whatever mathematical stuff I was doing, started getting into art. And of course, my parents were like, you can't, art's a dead end. if you're going to do it, you have to do graphic design. So after high school, I did 2 years of graphic design school, with an associate's degree. Went and got a job in advertising and hated it. Within 6 months, I quit and never did advertising ever again. And then, like I said, it was the 90s. So I just played music, read, partied, experienced life, dated, enjoyed, and I eschewed all like computers and technology at that time because I'd spent a lot of my childhood in front of a computer. And I was just like, I don't want to do that anymore. So the 90s happened. And then towards the end, I'm at a bar, looking down the bar, and I see some guy there. He's like 45 or whatever. And I just had this realization that is where I was going to be if I didn't do something like that. If I just continued the way that I wasn't going to make anything. I wasn't going to be doing anything. So that's when I decided to go back to college. I was dating a girl at the time too, and I was looking over what she was learning in college, and I was like, this isn't hard. I could do this. So I went to college, didn't have a direction, so I was undeclared. I took a philosophy class, decided I was going to declare philosophy. My philosophy professor told me there's absolutely no jobs doing this. You're going to make a mistake if you want to. And I was like, I don't care about jobs. I just want to learn. So that led me through that. And then towards the end of my college career, I took a photography course. And that led me to more photography courses because I really liked the way photography was so immediate. I'd been a musician through the 90s, and I came to the realization that people don't want to sit and listen to what you do for 4 minutes. Like, they don't have the time to do that. So there was like this, like nobody wants to spend the time, whatever. When I started doing photography, I realized I could say a lot more with a photograph, and they could get it a lot quicker. And they'd want to feel like they're being tortured by being forced to listen to it. You know what I mean?
Jeffrey, let's just divert on music for a second. What instruments you play?
Keyboards.
Do you write lyrics and music?
I'm not a lyricist. I actually don't even listen to lyrics when I listen to music. It's
do you compose, or you just play covers?
I compose.
You compose. So
yes.
Who are the 3 people you heard growing up that made you want to be a keyboardist?
I don't know who. Bach. Right.
Okay.
The organ fugues. I would say Richard Wright from Pink Floyd.
Okay.
That really drew me in. And then is it Ray Manzarek from The Doors?
Yeah.
Yeah. So those 3 probably my early influences.
Yeah.
And my parents, in their wisdom, as when I was a kid, gave me and my brother electronic organ lessons. So it got me started early, although at the time I could care less about it.
Yeah.
It wasn't until I was, of dating age that I realized that was a way to, be in the world, that you could be a musician, and people just would flock to that. So
yeah,
I revisited it.
And let's go into photography for a second.
Yeah.
Before we forget, it will come back around, but did you start digital photography, or did you start black and white film photography?
So at school, it was black and white film photography. When I started, I bought myself a digital camera because I was interested in seeing what and I started using them together, using the digital camera to better understand what I was doing in the darkroom and vice versa. But yeah, traditional darkroom photography for 3 semesters. And then after I graduated, they invited me back as an artist in residence at the university. So that's what led me to that, in that direction, was them, being interested. I was in my 30s. So the stuff I was making was, way above what the other students were doing. So it was natural for them to invite me back because I was doing stuff, not to brag, but because I was doing real work.
Right. So Billy Wilder said black and white is more true than color. Hey, we live in a color world. Why would he say that? I always ask this at my photography salons, and I just would love to hear your reaction. Why would he say black and white is more true than color?
Because we don't actually live in a color world. Color is a sensation that our brain adds to our experience. It is not something of the world.
Yeah, but then that I added that because that's what most, well, no, I added that just to flesh out. But why would he say black and white is more true than color?
Because it is. Because I,
Because it is.
I mean, we experience color. It's such a vivid, important part of our lives, but it's not a real thing.
Yeah.
It is an added sensation to our experiences.
Yeah.
Which makes it super powerful because it's coming from us, right? That colors are being generated from our minds, so that's why color has so much power over us. It's because it's coming from the inside instead of from the outside.
It's funny because I tend to say, no one really says this. I tend to say because black and white's been around longer than color. So we had this long range of black and white photography, and then we got color photography that already established this visual sensibility that black and white is a true portrait of that person.
Right.
So,
yeah.
But here's the next question. It's the framing device. How did you form your framing aesthetic? So, on Zoom, it's automatic. I'm not talking to you like this because that's traditional framing aesthetic. A little space here and a little more there. How did you form your framing aesthetic?
Very, very carefully and deliberately.
What informed it though?
Looking at other photographs, looking at the history of photography, my work when I was, right before I graduated, I was focused on retelling stories of the history of photography. So putting myself into the stories of history of photography and manipulating them in a way to create fictional histories, but which would also inform people about what happened in photography. So I was looking at a lot of what was coming before me as I was creating.
Now your tipping points for becoming a filmmaker. So you enter the Ann Arbor Film Festival 1-for-1. That's pretty good. Had you entered film festivals previous a lot or a little?
Yeah, I've been entering for about 5 years now, and
you've been making films for 5 years and entering them.
I've been making films for a lot longer, but I've been entering for the last 5 years.
Wow. Okay. So what was that tipping point go, I want to make films, and then the tipping point where you said, I want to be an educator?
So can I reverse them?
Any way you want, yeah.
Okay. So when I was an artist in residence at Millersville University in Pennsylvania, my former professor, who was then, I guess, my colleague, she became pregnant and had preeclampsia, so I had to have bed rest for the duration of her pregnancy, like right away. So the university hired me to teach her classes, even though I didn't have an MFA. But because I knew the program, I knew the classes, I knew the students, I knew the materials, and because I was in my 30s and they knew that I could handle it. They saw in me a teacher, something I'd never seen in myself, right? They were able to see that I could just do it. So that's what led me to start to teach, was just this random experience where they suddenly needed me to just do it, so I just stepped up.
How many years have you been teaching?
So that was 2009. I've been teaching, the first couple of years it was on and off, probably 12 or 13 years.
Yeah. And so that you like that as a career, you've sort of developed that and you find satisfaction being an educator.
Absolutely. It struck me right away when I went to the classroom and was teaching students that had been previously in classes with them, you know what I mean? Like, it was a weird sensation, but immediately I was like, oh, you mean I get to talk about the things that I'm interested in and people pay attention to me and I get paid for that? It just seemed like such a natural thing. Not that I'm a big talker, I'm not someone who has to show off, but it does give me those opportunities to talk things out, right? Yeah. To talk about the things that I'm interested in and to share with people this beautiful idea of art making, where you can just be in that solipsistic moment and just surround yourself with yourself and go into the making. And that's such a great experience of just focusing completely on a project and sharing that with other people and letting them know that they can also drop the whole world away and just focus on the thing that they're trying to do. I think that was really enticing to me.
Really good, Jeffrey. And so then you see your Fisher-Price film experience, you see Tron, you grow up watching films, it seems. Yeah. Where did you go, I can do this, I want to make a film?
So yeah, when after I finished teaching, I applied for graduate school right away because I was like, this is the only way I'll be able to do this for a living. When I went to graduate school, my teacher was also a filmmaker. Her name is Amy Hicks from University of Delaware. She was a San Francisco-based film artist that then moved out to Delaware for her gig. But I was watching her films. I was helping her like back stuff up, and just basic assistant stuff. And I really love the idea of the mathematics that could be involved with making film. Like I was doing early computer graphics when I was a kid, and again, so I hadn't been in front of a computer essentially for years and years at that point. I mean, when I went back to college, I was writing papers and stuff on computers, but I wasn't like invested in the way that I used to be when I was younger. So when I saw her work and bought myself a Mac and realized that I had the technology to be able to put stuff together, that's what really kicked it off, which is funny because up to that point, I was like, oh, photograph is something that people can see for an instant. And then suddenly I'm like, no, I want to make videos, which again was something that was time-based, which required people to focus to focus a moment. But I think that my films are better than my music. Let me just put it that way.
Yeah, that is interesting because what's the normal length of your films?
About 4 minutes.
That exact amount you said about the song. I'm not going to get these people to listen to a song for 4 minutes. I got the photographs, and then it's sort of, that's really amazing. But yeah. Did you ever come across the Whitney brothers? Because I mean, we started seeing mid-70s computer graphic films in Ann Arbor.
Yeah.
And I thought they kind of got left behind. But I mean, at what point did you see the Whitney brothers?
So when I
making or before you were making?
So right around the same time. So as I got my first Mac and started like experimenting, actually I had a 16 millimeter projector and some old Ford Motor Company industry films that my uncle had that he gave to me. So I was transferring them and exploring that. And one of my projects is a database of film fixations, which is every frame of a film in a row in a box like that, like a Moy grid of all the frames. So when I first started that project, I started investigating films, and I came across Whitney, and I came across, just all the people from the 60s and 70s that were all new to me. Yeah. And I was just like, this has been going on for this long? I had no idea that it was such a strong, like, experimental film, like
world.
Section.
Yeah. Did Tron help that tipping point? I want to be a filmmaker, or that was just along the way?
No, so I mean, I watched Tron. So the other thing, so my aunt who lived across the street worked at RCA and had one of the first RCA video discs. So not the laser disc, but the video disc. And those allowed you to go forward and backwards and stuff like that. Something that you couldn't do with other things at the time. And she had a whole bunch of films that were way beyond my age, but I watched them all. So I saw Dressed to Kill when I was probably 11 or 12. No idea what I was watching. I saw a lot of Porky's movies, a lot of, just a lot of real variety of different things. So that made a huge impression on me. So that when I did go back and start thinking about film, or when I was in graduate school and I started trying to understand film better, that connection really was important to me. And then those whole ideas of Tron, about all my experience with Tron as a kid, because I watched that movie over and over and over again. All those early sort of exposures to film and cinema came back at that time. It was like, oh, I have a rich sort of pond to pull from, because I've always been involved in this stuff, but I just never,
But having studied Schopenhauer and Nietzsche, in just knowing the world of storytelling, and you're attracted to Tron over and over, it's not so much the story that's getting you, it's more the effects. Or is it the story? And were there other of those discs that your aunt had that you watched besides Tron that had an effect on you, even more towards your philosophical storytelling sensibility, not storytelling? Mm-hmm. Philosophical sensibility, because films often have like a moral or a parable. Was there any others that hit you like Tron did in another capacity?
Yeah, so Time Bandits, absolutely. That was one I watched over and over again. The original Star Wars was one that we had on video disc that I watched over and over again. So what interests me about Tron is that idea of an original story, which is going into a computer. I mean, it's the first time that we take a journey inside of a machine in which that machine has a real world inside of it.
Yeah.
I mean, it started a whole genre of like investigating inside of things, like inside the computer or inside the toaster or whatever. And it was that, and then of course the special effects, because young kid, I like flashing lights. There was a lot of flashing lights in that movie. But yeah, and then I think that's
Go ahead. Mention a couple others if you
want. So some early Hitchcock movies, or some Hitchcock movies that I saw when I was a kid, that had a real profound effect on me, like Rear Window and Rope. I don't know if you're familiar with Rope. There's a rape scene in there that I saw really young that made a huge impression on me about the terribleness of human beings.
Yeah, that's heavy. You got into Hitchcock too. So then, screenwriting teacher told me great art is when you can clearly see the intention of the maker. Kubrick says the opposite. Great art is when you can clearly not see the intention of the maker. What role does intention play in your creative process when you're making a Jeffrey film? No commission, no assignment. You're just making one of your films. What role does intention play?
It's the entire thing. Intention is the only thing. The films that I make could be any other film, like especially ones that I appropriate. They could be any other film. It's the idea, it's the program, the actual mathematics of like the algorithm that I'm writing to create that effect. That is where the magic is for me. My films are kind of a byproduct of this investigation that I have with myself about mathematics and, spatial relationships and visuals. So yeah, intent is the only thing that I go in with. And it's not necessarily an intent to make a certain type of thing. It is just that I'm intentionally doing this as a practice.
As a practice, yeah. So Duchamp said there's no art without an audience. How much are you thinking of your potential viewer when you're making your film?
Not in the least.
Yeah.
I disagree that, I hate to say I don't care about my audience, but I'm not the type of person who needs it in order to continue to make. I'll make until I die,
Yeah. McLuhan says everything we invent extends some humanness. So knife and fork extends our teeth. The shutter in a camera extends our eyelid. Say even non-tangible philosophy or religion might be an extension of consciousness. What is the moving image camera, whether it's film or digital, extend for you? What humanness?
It's interesting because most of my films I don't make with a camera, right? I do, but then I'm manipulating it.
Right. But let's pinpoint better. What would you say your tool is? The computer?
Yeah.
Okay. Let's change the question. Why don't we say, what does the computer extend for you? What humanness in regards to you making a film?
My thinking.
Yeah.
My daydreaming.
Oh, that's different than thinking. Daydreaming too. Yeah.
Are they different? Because
I'm not. I shouldn't. The words are different.
Right.
If you go, hey, dude, are you thinking or daydream? I mean, that's George Carlin saying, whatever happened to letting kids stare out the window?
Exactly.
That we don't do. Kids can't do that now. You got to go to soccer now. You got to do this. And I love to collect all these cute aphorisms, but dude, the whole point of them is to reinvent them.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever happened to letting kids stare at their cell phone? Because their cell phone is their window now. They like, I lectured to these art students yesterday, and I went like this. This is all they do all day. They pull their. It's like fucking westerns.
Yes.
Like a boom, and they all laugh. But it was like, I shouldn't have done it because they don't want to be mocked, because we did it with pens. It doesn't matter what the tool is.
Right. Yeah.
We have biases. We like, well, in the old days, we were more attentive when we used a pen and a.
Yeah.
So let's go into science for a second. What's the difference between science and art?
Very little. Uh, to me, they're both investigations to learn more about something.
Yeah.
Um, art, for personally, is to learn more about myself and the way my mind works. Um, but art also, for other people, can also be completely different than science in that it is not about learning anything for most people. It's about expressing themselves. And they see that as something different than probably what I see, which is understanding my thoughts better.
Here's Jean Cocteau. Art is science made clear. Any comment?
Yeah, I think that for me, absolutely, because I can learn stuff about the scientific world. Um, it's just really funny. When I was in undergraduate school, I had a Nietzsche class. I was talking about we had to write a paper, and I went to my professor and was like, "Can I just write an essay, like a story that full of symbolism and all that kind of stuff?" He's like, "Yeah, Nietzsche would be all into that." So I did. Like instead of writing the paper, I wrote just the story about a kid falling out of a tree, and from the time he falls to the time he hits the ground, all this stuff happens in his head. All these interactions are going on and stuff. I was using what I had learned from the readings to recreate in an artistic way a way to understand it better. And I do that with science a lot too, especially like the history of photography, which I was exploring. It was a history of science. Photography came at a time when people were questioning whether the real world existed.
Yeah.
And then photography hit and they were like, oh, this is absolutely proof, which is just so ridiculous to me.
Yeah.
That like people think that that's like a photograph is a proof of something actually happening. It's not, right? It's an artifice as much as everything else in the world is an artifice.
The word is painting with light. That's the etymology of the word.
Right.
The McLuhan joke is great. The mother's pushing the baby buggy down the street, and the guy comes up and looks at the baby and goes, "What a lovely baby!" And the mother goes, "You should see her picture." Here's a McLuhan quote that I would love for you to just comment on anyway. When we push our paradigms back, we get history. When we push them forward, we get science.
Yeah, I think I would agree with that. History is nothing. It's all projection of us. Despite the fact that it's all written down, there's no way to understand it as anything but information. So it's absolutely created by the future. And yeah, I would say. Go ahead.
Here's Chomsky. We learn more about ourselves from literature than from science.
Chomsky can feel that way. He's all about words.
It's interesting because you're a literature guy in a lot of ways, but
I am.
So yeah. It's good you said it. Here's McLuhan in '69 on what you're talking about in a book called Interior Landscape, the inner, the inner self. For James Joyce has solved numerous problems which science has not yet formulated as problems.
Thanks. Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah, because that's Tony Conrad. Artists break laws that haven't even been made yet, or break rules that haven't been made yet.
Right, I agree with that absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah, we could go off on science and art forever with you, and especially because the other thing I had to tell you was Thelonious Monk says it best: music is math.
Yes. And Thelonious Monk is a huge influence on me as a musician and as an artist. His the fact that his work sounds so natural and unrehearsed, but he was insane about rehearsing every little tiny bit of it. It's just that's glorious to me.
Yeah, my friend nails it. He said Monk heard all the same notes Charlie Parker heard, but only decided to play some of them.
Exactly. Yeah, absolutely.
And then how about this one? Talk about the resonating interval, the gap. He said, silence is the loudest sound in the universe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I agree with
But
that
it
too.
is funny for him to say math is music. It doesn't sound math. In a way it does, but in another way it sounds like off kilter and sort of playful, you know.
Right. Well, I mean, I think that's just a reflection of the way that people don't understand what mathematics does, right?
Yeah.
Mathematics is not as rigid as people think that it is, right? They were taught it in a very rigid way. Once you
Yeah.
get through that and start to understand what mathematics is, it turns into poetry.
Well, then that's heavy because I was going to avoid this one, but this is a French historian. Science finds no truths. It discovers unknown facts that can be interpreted 1,000 ways.
Yeah, I would agree with that. This
Okay,
like,
go ahead.
just the way that we think that we're actually learning anything. I mean, again, we're learning it about the way that we think. We're learning more about the way that we think, not about the world.
Not the because that's well, math is 1 + 1 = 2. Well,
Yeah,
Frank Zappa starts a song. 1 + 1 = 11.
yeah,
2 + 2 = 22.
yeah.
That's not incorrect. But if you tell a math teacher who's trying to teach kids that, they go, dude, don't listen to Frank. That's incorrect.
Right, right, yeah,
That's
yeah,
that you can interpret it many different ways. But
absolutely.
math seems to be so, this is the way it is. So here's something. Milan Kundera in the book The Unbearable Likeness of Being.
Mm-hmm.
This is why I love writing, because the character that I'm writing about can go further than I can.
Mm-hmm.
It sort of sounds like you're mathematical, you're linear, but if I take a pen and I write a character on a piece of paper, how can that character go further than I can? I mean, it sounds poetic, romantic, and in a
Yeah,
high aspiration.
yeah. No, I agree. Though there's more. Our work can do more than we can do, for sure. Which is it's a weird dichotomy. It doesn't seem like it could possibly be. But there's ways I've expressed myself ways in my work that I've never been able to comprehend about myself and then share about myself. So it's not going further than me. It is me.
It is you, yeah. That's heavy because the poet critic Helen Vendler just died, and she says, I write to explain things to myself.
I make work to explain things to myself too. Absolutely.
Yeah. Yep. Okay, this is George Manupelli, found the Ann Arbor Film Festival 63 years ago. His mantra is ignore yourself. Jonas Mekas, same thing. There's no self-expression. Cecil Taylor, great jazz pianist, says, I'm just a vehicle and this stuff just comes through me.
Mm-hmm.
So Jeffrey, is art making more self-expression or more your vehicle for whatever technologies, environments, and cultures are dominant?
Yes. It has to be a blend of the two. There's no way to get around it being both things at the same time.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Well, that makes sense. I know. I mean, when I do these questions in Ann Arbor, go round robin, and this one guy goes both, and this student goes, "That's a cop out." I mean, all the binaries I set up, it depends, and of course it's both. And that's fine. But the real hidden question again, Jeffrey, is: can art making be egoless?
Oh, no, I don't think so.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, it is. If you're making it, regardless of how you feel about yourself, it is your ego that's making it. It is your, interior self. So it's all ego and nothing else.
I asked Michael Apted many years ago, 40 years ago, if why do rock video editors feel so obliged to edit fast? Most people don't know Abel Gance invented rapid montage in 1922, but it flourished in the 80s with MTV to the point where Marty Scorsese said, I cut my films faster because of MTV. Yeah. So Michael Apted said, because we've learned to take in information faster. I asked the question with a bias. Can we literally learn to take in information faster, or are we just brainwashed to believe we can?
I think we are trained to take information faster. Absolutely. When you watch old movies, you watch the pacing. The reason, people don't get into like the old movies of the 30s and 40s is because the pacing is too slow for them. They are trained now that they need a certain amount of information in a certain amount of time. And if they're not getting it fast enough, they'll lose interest in it.
The hidden question is, can humans literally multitask?
That's funny because I've been exploring that just in my interior self for probably a couple of weeks now. I took a moment to try to, from advice from my psychiatrist, take a moment to try to release my thoughts or like not have them. And all I did was realize that I have 30 going at the same time. That it's a much bigger task than it seems. Yes, I believe that I can multitask because I can compose and write programs at the same time.
Yeah.
But
what's your guess or hunch was the motive of the cave artist?
Jeez. I mean, probably they couldn't help themselves.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what all art making is. It's not. I've not met very many artists that choose to do it, even though it's not something from them. You know what I mean? Like artists make art because they can't stop. Yeah. They can't resist it.
Yeah, it's sort of McLuhan's favorite line. The Balinese have no word for art. They do everything as well as they can.
Nice.
What's more important, conviction or compromise?
Compromise.
No right or wrong answers. Again, you got that one right, dude. Everybody says conviction. It's like 80% say conviction.
I mean, conviction is stupid. Like,
I agree.
If you're so convinced about something, you're wrong. I mean, by definition, being convinced about something means that you're wrong.
That's really beautiful. Again, did you get that from the way your parents raised you or on your own?
I mean, it's hard to know, right? Because as a little kid, I wasn't like going around understanding what I was thinking. I would say 50-50, right? They raised me to be very, very compassionate and to be patient and to, help other people become better and not do it for yourself, not force yourself upon people. And then when I was studying philosophy, I came across a lot of these truths, right? That like the more that you know, the less that you know. Everything that you ever thought was true as a child is exactly the opposite. I mean, there's no way to ever reach a conclusion that doesn't then get overturned, weeks or months or years later. So,
that's my truth page. I got to pull it out because it's what here it is. It's exactly what your guy said, Schopenhauer.
Right.
All truth passes through 3 stages. First, it's ridiculed. Secondly, it's violently opposed. Third, it's accepted as being self-evident. I knew that all along. That's one of my favorite truth quotes. Well, before we go into the truth quote page, I want to tell you these 2 things because you touched on them. Brecht asked Charles Lawton, why do you act? He says, because people don't know what they are like, and I think I can show them.
Yeah, nice. Yeah.
And so that's like goes along with how do you, it is actually one of my music questions is, and I'll couch it with the Igor Stravinsky quote first, but the 3 T's of music are taste, technique, and theory. Theory, you've learned the structure of music. Technique, you've learned how to play. How does one acquire taste? Because Igor says most people don't know what they like what they know.
Right. Yeah.
So I mean, how do people know to like of all the music you listed on your site? I goes, Laurie Anderson, how'd that get in? Whereas the other ones were seemingly more mainstream. So how does one acquire taste?
From the people that they surround themselves with. Yeah. So their family, their community. There's no like definition of yourself apart from other people.
Yeah.
You are who you are in relationship to other people. Yeah. Yeah.
That's the key thing. That's the key thing McLuhan said. Understanding is not having a point of view. That's really hard to get because we
Yeah.
think, oh, I love Facebook or I hate it. I got to change it. I love Instagram or I hate Instagram. No, you can in your lonely teenage room say that, but when you're with one or more people, don't say that. Just suss out how Instagram's shaping our behavior.
Right. Yeah.
And so here's Shelby Foote. A fact is not a truth until you love it.
Hmm. Yeah, that seems very odd to me.
Isn't that weird? I mean, Pete,
Yeah.
that one's hard. Here's Eartha Kitt. Truth is a theory that is constantly being disproved. Only lies, it seems, go on forever.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because truth changes. You were talking about those three things previously.
Yeah.
I'll add the fourth to it, Marshall McLuhan, which is that it then gets flipped on its head, and we realize it was never true to begin with, right?
Yeah.
That like.
How about here's Marcel Proust. On what occasion do you lie?
To protect myself, I guess.
Wow.
Protect my fragile ego.
Yeah. Here's Louis Buñuel. I'm for anyone who seeks the truth, but I part ways when they claim they found it. Now, most people like, oh, that's great. And one guy goes, nope, that's bullshit. Because if I'm going to seek something, it's because I want to find it. And so I morphed it into the question. The journey, this cliche goes, the journey is more important than the destination. Why do we have to seek or name a destination if the journey is more important?
Because we can't help ourselves. Like our brains are composed in a way to find things and decide on them. So we are constantly fighting against this structure in our brains, which just says you need to find it and collect it, right?
Yeah.
Just collecting machines.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's perfect lead into, but I have to tell you, the flaneurs in Paris in the 1920s changed the world forever. You know, Hemingway and Joyce said, I find epiphanies in everydayness. They just sat at coffee houses and chilled out. They didn't have, people go, well, you have to have a focus or a destination. He goes, no, that's psychogeography. You just wander aimlessly and you might have an epiphany.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah.
So what you talked about is perfect way to lead into, we're doing a project on archiving. You know, the word etymologically comes from 1400s, keep safe from harm. Then 1600s, it's really where we know what we think the word means is record preserved as evidence. But here's Baudelaire, poet. If you try to make a statement long, deep, and rich, it will age very fast. If you try to only own the day you're talking, it will last forever. It's kind of like David Lee Roth, here today, gone later today. I mean, isn't the point of life to live in the moment? Why do we have to collect all this shit if we're supposed to live in the moment? I mean, I know history is important to study, blah, 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 but Wyndham Lewis actually nailed it too. He said, artists live in the present and write a detailed history of the future. So it's twofold question. Is archiving more innate or more invented? And do you have plans for your own archive?
I think that's archiving is probably more innate. I think that it's a structure of our brains to, like I said, collect facts, give them a space, preserve them, especially if we think that that fact is truth, right? The truth. So yeah, I think that's it's an activity of human existence. If I could not archive, if I could just live in the moment, I'd be all into it, but I can't. There's no way that I can do that because my brain will not allow me, right? Because I'm constantly trying to grab a hold of things and make them my own, right? Make them part of what I'm thinking.
That's interesting. It's almost like you're saying you have to. But what if you did like the Snapchat kid is like, you make one of your films, it screens for 10 minutes on YouTube, then it just self-destructs.
I mean, that would be fine with me. It's not my films that I'm trying to archive. It is the creation of that film, like the process that I go through
That's what's important for you. But
Yeah,
now you've got all these files, you got black and white photographs, you got boxes of stuff, and my wife tries to say it's crap. I say it's archives. But you know what I'm talking about in the digital world's kind of bullshitty, because I mean you will live in that better than me. They say the professional archivist said, yeah, oh, it's on a hard drive. It's like, yeah, you got to check your hard drive once a year and you got to replace it every 10 years. Is that
absolutely.
true? That's true.
Yes.
So your archive, do you have plans for your own archive?
Oh, you mean after I'm gone?
Yeah, like if you die, all your stuff, do you just say let your family and friends do whatever they want, or do you have a plan for it?
I don't have a plan for it. I mean, I have all of my stuff backed up on several dozen hard drives, which I then ship to people and friends all over the country, so that if I lose one, or just so I'm always backed up. But I could care less what happens to any of my work after I go. It is not about the presentation of the work to other people for me. It is about the process of making. And that's as ephemeral as you can imagine. So there's no like recording that for posterity.
Yeah.
So I don't care about the rest of it, which is, I guess I should care, but I don't.
That's good. You're really well put. In your accomplishments, how do you rate these three elements: luck, skill, and ambition? What played the biggest role, second and third?
Oh man, I mean, it is a blending of them all, of course, right? I would like to say that skill is above other things.
Yeah, there you
I
go.
think I would probably put skill first, and then luck, and then ambition.
Cool.
Just because I don't have a lot of ambition. I mean, I have goals that I go after, but I don't dream of being big or making it or being remembered forever. Like, I enjoy what I do while I'm doing it.
Beautiful. Is perception reality?
It's as much as reality as we could ever understand.
Yep.
I mean, it is the whole reality as we understand it, but it's not. Of course, it's not reality.
Why is it so difficult for humans to consider the possibility that life may be pointless? I'm not saying it is pointless. I'm saying, why is it so hard for humans to consider the possibility that it might be pointless?
Because of ego, because there's an innate structure in our human minds which say that if there's no purpose, there's no reason. And if there's no reason, there's no reason to live. So therefore, we create this idea that we have to have that purpose. We have to have that ambition. I mean, I think it's just an innate part of the structure of the human brain.
Lewis Carroll says, I believe as many as 6 impossible things before breakfast. Have you believed in any impossible things lately?
Ooh, as you get older, it's much harder to like keep that sort of freshness of believing things. But yes, do I need to talk about those things?
Well, if there's one you want to mention, I mean, you don't have to. Yeah.
I mean, every day for me is. I mean, I'm a daydreamer, so I constantly am thinking about things that wouldn't happen.
Yeah.
That can't happen.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that I'm not stressed about it or thinking about it. The fact that it's impossible doesn't mean anything to me. My brain's still going to attach to it.
Yeah. In fact, Sunra said in New Yorker, of all places recently, the impossible attracts me because everything possible has been done and the world didn't change.
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Tell me one major element of your creativeness, Jeffrey, that stayed the same, and one major element that's changed in the years you've been doing this.
So the thing that's stayed the same is the daydreaming, the playing with thoughts, like it's a teddy bear. You know what I mean? Like exploring it, pulling it apart, smashing it, whatever. Things that changed. My willingness to follow through on an endeavor.
Wow. You mean that the willingness has increased or decreased?
Increased. Yeah, when I was younger.
Increased, yeah.
Increased, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I wasn't like that when I was younger. I could care less about succeeding at anything. As I got older and as I realized potentials, that's become more important to me.
Moshe Feldenkrais works with healing and movement. He says it's literally possible to identify a weakness and incorporate it to become a strength, rather than we're normally taught to overcome a weakness. Tell me a weakness you turned into a strength.
Of my daydreaming. I mean,
So that's a weakness, and how did it become a strength?
it became a strength because I finally got myself into a position where I could use it for something useful to make things with. Because for a long time, it was just a distraction from that rote education that I was getting, where you had to learn these things. My daydream would distract me from it. Now I can sit here and I can daydream as much as I want to, and I'm doing work.
That's amazing. Fill in the blank. Anger can be a productive emotion when
when it allows you to see other people's suffering.
Wow. What's the most significant difference between men and women, physical aside?
Oh, men like to make generalizations. Yeah, I don't really prescribe to that. I mean, I understand the question. There clearly is differences, but yeah, I mean, I don't. That's nothing that I would consider. Yeah.
There's a line that goes, "You create what you resist." Bob Goldthwait morphed it into, "You are what you hate."
Mm-hmm.
James Joyce said, "It's a curious thing how your mind is super saturated with the religion in which you say you disbelieve." And Louis Buñuel nailed it. He said, "Thank God I'm an atheist."
Right.
So it's basically, what's your reaction to this line? You create what you resist. I'm not saying you, Jeffrey. One creates what one resists. Any thoughts on that line?
Yeah, because we're our own worst enemies. Like, we are going to materialize problems in our life that don't exist, again, because of the structure of the human brain. It is an innate thing to create things that are problems when they don't exist at all.
Yeah. Hollis Frampton, great experimental filmmaker, said narrative is born among the animal necessities of the spirit because we're waiting to die. I asked the question, can you forget to die?
No.
How do you find peace of mind?
How do I find peace of mind? Is there such a thing?
Dude, you're asking a question. You're answering a question with a question. You win. That's what this series is all about.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Oh, I can do that.
Yeah. Here's 5 Alan Watts questions off the top of your head in just a couple words. 1, who started it all?
I did.
2, are we going to make it?
No.
3, where do we put it?
In the past.
4, who's cleaning it up?
Our prodigy, or our progeny, right? The people that come after us.
5, is it serious?
No, it's not serious at all.
Wow. My friend who worked with Robin Williams comedy said, I asked him, can satire be destructive? He says, that's the job of satire.
Right.
But if me or you do a cartoon in a certain country, they kill us. Some people think dying is destructive. Swift compared satire to a mirror in which people could see every face but their own. What's the function of satire?
To hold a mirror up to society.
Yeah.
To let it see what it's actually doing, because it won't unless there's comedy involved for some reason.
What's the function of laughter?
Relieve stress.
Yeah. Gurdjieff said laughter is the reconciliation of yes and no.
Yeah.
But McLuhan loved to quote Steve Allen. Behind every joke, there's a grievance. Maybe we can avoid the word every. Behind jokes, there's a grievance. Any thought on that?
Yeah, I mean, my favorite quote is Spock, who said that a joke is a story with a humorous climax. But that implies that there's some sort of tension that's created. I mean, humor is tension creating because it's only in the release of the tension that we find that we laugh, right? Because otherwise we would cry.
Yeah.
I don't know if I answered the question or not, but that's my
Well,
answer.
that was good because Spock said joke is a story without what?
Spock said a story is a joke, or sorry, a joke is a story with a humorous climax.
Oh, with a humorous climax.
Yeah, yeah. So even the shortest joke follows the story arc. Like they're all the same patterns.
Yeah. If you were walking down the street today and you met yourself as a 12-year-old, what would you say to your 12-year-old self?
Keep at it.
Which way should toilet paper come off the roll, over or under?
Over all the time.
The patent has it going over 100 years ago, but the 5% of people who say under have their reason.
Oh, I'm sure. I'm sure. I mean, you wouldn't make that decision if there wasn't some sort of reason.
If a publisher was to release your autobiography off the top of your head, what would the title be?
I tried.
They want to scent the glue in the binding. What smell?
Sorry, say that again.
They want to scent the glue in the binding of your autobiography. What smell?
Probably horse shit.
That is a well, you have ESP there, Jeffrey. You're anticipating a question coming up in a
That's great. Horse shit.
Well, you know, my wife was raised on a horse farm. She says horse shit is just grass.
Right. I grew up in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, Amish country. It was all about manure. I mean, it was everywhere all the time. So, yeah, it's not as bad as people think it is.
If a statue was built in your honor, where would you want it displayed and what would it be made of?
I'd probably want it made of paper mache and maybe hang at a kid's pinata party.
Oh, that is a great answer. You're smart. Tell me something good you never had and you never want.
Something that's good. That is really tough.
It's good, you never had it, but you never want it.
I would say fame.
Dude, you know what? The three answers I get the most are fame, money, and heroin.
Oh, yes. I mean, yeah, they all sound like good answers.
If you were in a vat of vomit up to your neck and someone threw a bag of shit at your face, what would you do?
Dive in.
That's good. What's the cultural shift you see developing today that inspires you?
I mean, there's certainly negative cultural shifts that are inspiring me to fight back, right? The embracing of, I mean, it's not a cultural shift because it's always been there, but the embracing of lies as truth.
Yeah.
I think, and like I said, it's always been there, you know, it's just, am I different? Am I realizing it more now? I think it's more prevalent in the society, especially what's going on in political realms right now. There's more of a focus on understanding what lies and truth actually are.
This goes along with it in a way, is because, again, this is McLuhan in 57, Classroom Without Walls. It's misleading to suppose there's any basic difference between education and entertainment. It's on the ground like one teaches and one pleases. However, it's always been true, whatever pleases teaches more effectively.
Yes.
So any thoughts on this? The difference between education and entertainment, is there a difference? And then what does this mean? Whatever pleases teaches more effectively.
Yeah, so I would say that that's true, that entertainment is education. And the reason is because we don't do well learning things when we're angry or disinterested. As a teacher, I'm a performer mostly. if I cannot perform in that classroom as if it was a comedy routine, not saying that everything I say is a joke, but just understand the structure of a comedy routine, like how it flows. If I can recreate that feeling of like a good Steve Martin show, then I got the students hooked, and they learn way better when they're interested and engaged than they do if they're angry.
Yeah. Funny thing is, Jeffrey, everybody says that, whatever pleases teaches more effectively. One guy a couple weeks ago said, no, whatever displeases teaches more effectively, which was a funny flip. I was like, well, I mean, it's like the thing is more effectively,
Right.
because I do think you want to keep their attention and keep them engaged, like you're a stand-up comedian. And that's the thing. You didn't go to college and they taught you how to teach. You just looked at all your teachers and go, oh, I can do this way, this or that,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I find like if my students are if they're put in a good mood by my attitude, they learn a lot better.
Yeah.
Students that are stressed do not learn well at all. So like putting them in a position of being upset or
Yeah.
under pressure to perform, that is not the way that you learn anything.
Yeah. Well, we just got a couple more. I want to thank you. It's really been fun, and you're really articulate and concise. I appreciate it really a lot, Jeffrey. This has been fun. I learned a lot. And
Awesome.
so Utah Phillips says anarchy is making rules for yourself and not other people. Who's entitled to make the rules?
Oh, we're entitled to make our own rules.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because etymologically, the word freedom means making one's own rules for oneself. What does freedom mean to you now?
Having the time to make.
Yeah.
To just make whatever.
Yeah. What's a question that remains unresolved for you?
Oh. Why do I have to suffer so much?
Wow. Why do I have to suffer? That's funny because I kind of say there's no have tos as then there's no should haves. Like people go, I have to do this or I should do this. There's no have tos or should haves. But why do I have to suffer so much? So you put it in yourself. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. How has filmmaking shaped your behavior?
It's allowed me to see time as something different than what I had experienced before. It's allowed me to understand the timing of events, the timing of presentations, the timing of drives. So filmmaking has given me an innate understanding of time as a structured element. So before I started making films, I could never tell you when a half an hour was over. Now I can almost to a couple minutes say that's been a half an hour and know that it's been half an hour. Because if you see the world in 4-minute episodes over the same thing over and over again in 4 minutes, you get a real strong feeling of what 4 minutes is.
Yeah. You evoke one of my favorite films, Sans Soleil by Chris Marker. Have you ever seen it?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And I asked Jay Rosenblatt, how did that film affect you, influence you? He goes, it's how I imagined he made it. He didn't say I studied all the books, how he made it. It doesn't matter. It's how he imagined he made it. Beautiful answer. But it's the question that Marker asks, can we escape time?
Right. We can't.
We cannot.
I don't think we can. It is an integral part of, again, the structure of the brain. The brain works in this time function. We have to recognize it for what it is. There's no way to escape it.
Thornton Wilder, 1928. Art is confession. Art is the secret told. But art is not only the desire to tell one's secret, it's the desire to tell it and hide it at the same time. You've laid your cards on the table for 90 minutes. I'm not insinuating you haven't already answered this. What's it really all about for you?
It's really all about the daydreaming and the playing in my mind.
Yeah.
If I can find a job or time to do just that, I am happy as a clam. I have achieved my zen.
It's amazing because you have that roots in music and you play music. You don't work music.
Right.
And Walter Pater says all art aspires to the condition of music. We wish that poetry, filmmaking, architecture was all as cool as music. It isn't, but
Yeah. They call it artwork for a reason.
artwork.
Yeah. Right.
I
It's not art play.
work for a reason. That's horrible. Yeah. But it is. Oh, I had something else said. I lost it. But there's something about that word play. I think it was this. Yeah. I ask this question sometimes. If you had to say the word after the to summarize your life, like The Shining is Kubrick, The Wake is James Joyce, and I asked Eric McLuhan what he would say and his dad would say, and he said the playground. So it's like your ground. It has a double meaning and says play. And then my friend told me yesterday, or a couple of days ago, Lacan would say the real. That was his big thing. The real. Well, if you just off the top of your head, you have to summarize your life.
I mean, playground is so good. It was where my mind was around that and then you said it, so now it's a little bit hard to break away from that. I would say the end.
Oh my God, because I was saying, well, it's obvious, dude. I've said it a million times. The daydream.
Yes.
But the end is amazing to say that because, okay, what gives you the most optimism?
My own mind.
Yeah. Well, it's fun. Jeffrey, it's really been enlightening. Like I said, I appreciate your time and energy. The first question was, what is the best thing for a human being? And Wilhelm Reich said, the best thing for a human being is another human being. And the last question is, what gives you the most optimism? That's what they asked Groucho Marx at the end of his life. And he said, other people. It's sure been fun spending this time with another person. Thank you so much for your time and energy, Jeffrey.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. And even though I'm going to hit the end broadcast button now, I hope this never ends and we can keep talking forever and ever. And it never ends.
It's a never ending story.
All right, dude. Thanks.
Thank you so much.